Hi guys, welcome to chapter 15.1. It's called Post-War Delusionment. Alright, let's get something out of the way. What we're looking at for this post-war delusionment is, again, the idea that after the war, people are sad. Okay, so they're sad. What do we mean by delusionment? Basically, delusionment means to lose naive faith and trust. After the war, they realize all their friends are dead, all their entire country's dead. They are disillusioned. They've lost faith. Like this guy, he looks disillusioned. He's lost faith. All right. So after World War I, what we're looking at here is shock and disillusionment again. People lose faith in their political system, and here you see there was economic trouble. So there's brain trouble and there's money trouble. All right, we get a Great Depression, and again that leads. It's almost this cycle. They lose faith in their country, so their economy gets worse. So they lose faith in their country, so the economy becomes worse, and it becomes this spiral. Best way. In addition, boys and girls, what you're going to see here is after World War I, people feel like the government has let them down. People want change, and when people want change and they're disillusioned, they turn to extremists. And this is why some of these dictators are able to come to power, because after the war, those guys seem like a really good idea. And the only way they could have been a really good idea was after the war. So we're going to look at artists after the war. What we're going to see is it becomes abstract. Basically, hey, reality stunk, so let's make things that are not like life. Let's make things dreamlike or kind of just goofy purpose. First person is our boy Salvador Dali. This one is called Autumn Cannibalism. Really interesting, powerful. I forget the name of this one. But again, really interesting. And this is the most famous one, Exploding Clock by Salvador Dali. You've got Pablo Picasso. All right. Pablo Picasso, known for these somewhat unique. Notice the dreamlike aspect to this. Not only did visual artists change, we also see literature change. Again, you're going to see rebellion against idealism. Basically, the war killed idealism. These are going to explore the feelings of loss and fear. You see what in America is called a lost generation. The lost generation are artists from America who moved to Paris after the war. Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, all right? And again, disillusioned by the war, all right? The lost generation, again, you might have heard of Hemingway, Old Man in the Sea. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote The Great Gatsby, which I think you guys read in school. Music's going to change. And what's really going to change about music is irregular rhythms. Man, if we're living on this earth for a short time, let's go big. All right? So what we see here is the movement of jazz. Famous artists like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and many of these original jazz artists made their name in New York City in a place called the Cotton Club. All right? I've said it already like 18 times. You should count them. All right, jazz, Bessie Smith, one of the famous bluesers. Here you see a picture of the jazz era about the dress. Not only did music change, did art change, but science changed. And who's a stud of that? Einstein. He's German born, and he basically changes everything we know about science. All right? Theory of relativity discovered that things were not. He discovered that the things we thought were constant aren't. Time and space aren't constant. Again, upper level science. I love this series. Smart Einstein, like a boss Einstein, young Einstein, younger Einstein. And I like this quote. If you can explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And last of all, sexy Einstein. Not only did Einstein change the way we understood the world, Sigmund Freud, or as I like to call him, Sigmund Freud, who you can learn about in my psych class next year, said that human behavior is often irrational and we're cold and controlled by our unconscious. And the most famous here is he's always going to be talking about the relationship between a person and their mother. And it's kind of funny. Reverse psychology, telling me about your ego. So here's what you see for Freud, and here's what I want you to know. He said all people are like an iceberg. No matter what you see above the surface, there's so much more below the surface. The id is the part of the human being that wants to do everything. Superego is the part that wants to be perfect. Your ego is the part that negotiates between those two. But again, notice so much of what people do is they're unconscious. All right? They're unconscious. The things they're not even aware they're thinking. That made me laugh. Kentucky Fried Chicken. Not only do we see that, we see a new kind of philosophy be born, existentialism. Believe there's no universal meaning to life. Each person creates, again, this is all a reaction to World War I. The meaning of life, I like that. I like this even better. And it just gets too blurry to read down here. All right? And all around the world, we're going to see these new rebellious women called flappers. They were rebellious. They wore shorter dresses than their mom did. You'll notice here the long necklace that would add to their dancing action. You see the smoking again. On some level, they're thinking, dude, World War I was terrible. If we're only going to live a little while, live it up. Notice the difference. 1880s, 1920s. Shoulder, ankles, wrist, totally different. A-frame style dresses with significantly shorter hemlines. Not only did the world change, so far we've had the world change in art, we've had the world change in science, and we've also had the world change in behavior. Now we're going to get it in technology. What are some of the most important technologies? The automobile. All right? Here you see a Model T. By the way, my favorite line ever about the Model T is Henry Ford told people you could buy it in any color you wanted to, as long as the color was black. He sold it in only one color. It was mass produced. All right? The Model T changed his culture. Henry Ford began mass producing it. Again, huge change for the world. The world is speeding up. Not only is the world speeding up, it's getting smaller. All right? Also, what helped the world get smaller are the Wright brothers, who designed the first plane. You get Charles Lindbergh, and probably somewhere down here we should have done Amelia. Probably the biggest and most important change is the radio. Basically, the world went from having 0 radios to 1 million overnight. Every major city had a channel to broadcast, playing music, news, live sports. It can be safe to assume that every American family owned a radio. And families would sit around the radio and listen to programs. And they would have favorite shows. And there would be tie-ins with cereal and things like that. Just to give you an idea how fast it exploded, in 1920, there was 1 radio station in all of America. By 1922, there's 400. That is what we would call exponential growth. Little to gargantuan. All right. Mass media began, radio, newspapers, magazines. These things did more than unify the United States and other countries throughout the world. It also spread new ideas and attitude. The most famous kind of mass media figure of that time period is Charlie Chaplin, known as the Little Tramp. What you're going to start to see here in the 20s is not only movies, but what they called, I love this, talkies, movies with other movies. Famous movies include Mary Pickford, Rudo Valentino, and Clara Bow. So guys, those are the changes I went, oh wow, look, it went beast. Arts, entertainment, science, technology, and behaviors. All right, we are all done. So now I'm going to